Hi, this is Sue Jackson of the Book by Book blog, and I'm here today with another Friday Reads. I have just finished one book and just started a new one, so I'll give you a little bit of an overview of both of those. Yesterday, I just finished Ordinary Grace by William Kent Krueger. This was the February selection for my neighborhood book group. Unfortunately, I was not feeling well enough last night to go to my book group. My chronic illness was just acting up, and I missed the discussion, which I was really sorry about. Now, last year, my book group read This Tender Land by William Kent Krueger, and we all loved it. This was actually the choice last year for our all-county reads program. So I didn't get to see him, but he did come and give a talk locally. So my book group got free copies of this last year from our library system, and we all just loved it. It was one of my top books of the year. I didn't rank all my top books, but this was number 2. It was up there. So I was very much looking forward to reading Ordinary Grace. And the books are similar in some ways. Aren't his covers just beautiful? He just showed the new cover for his new release that's coming out later this year, and it's equally beautiful. And I think you can see from the covers, his books always have a strong element of nature in them. Like This Tender Land, Ordinary Grace is historical fiction. A little bit of a mystery at the middle of it, definitely with this one, even more so, and set in Minnesota. So in the case of Ordinary Grace, it begins in 1961, and actually it's fully set in 1961. The narrator is a 13-year-old boy named Frank, and he's got an 11-year-old brother named Jake. Their father's a minister, their mother is a singer and musician, and it's all about the events that happened this one summer in 1961 in their small rural town in southern Minnesota, and how those events changed the narrator. So it's written as though he's telling the story as an adult looking back on the events of that summer. And you know, right from the beginning, he says that there were 4 deaths that summer. And immediately, right off, you find out in the first pages that a little boy, about his brother's age, I think, was killed by a train on the train tracks. Soon after that, the second death occurs, and then the later deaths hit a little closer to home. So there is a mystery at the center of this. One of the deaths is clearly murder, and so that's the mystery. You know, who did this? How did it happen? That sort of thing. But you know, the mystery is only one piece of this. It's really a beautifully written coming-of-age novel. As I said, there's a lot here about nature. They live right along the river, so the boys are always playing along the river and exploring, and a lot of these deaths occur near the train tracks and near the river. So it's about loss and grief, and growing up, but also about healing and moving forward. Definitely very much about family, and also friendship. There's just so much packed into this, and I love the way that Krueger writes. So I very much enjoyed Ordinary Grace by William Kent Krueger. My book group always rates books out of a 10-point scale. Even though I wasn't there last night, I told them that I'd give this a 9. Really enjoyed it. Not quite as much as This Tender Land, which was a perfect 10 in my book, but I enjoyed it very much. I haven't heard yet what the rest of the group thought of it. And last night, I started Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora, Neale, Hurston. I thought this was a great way to wrap up Black History Month. This is a 75th anniversary edition of this book. It is, of course, a classic, so it also counts for my Classics Challenge. And I have never read this before. I've never read anything by Hurston before. Somehow, this wasn't one of the books that we read in school, though I know it's a very popular choice in English classes. I have only just started it. I think, yeah, I'm on chapter 2. I just read the part of the prologue in chapter 1 last night. The prologue in this edition is written by Edwidge Dandacat. I listened to one of her middle grade novels last year. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Behind the Mountains, which takes place in Haiti. Excellent. It was one of my top middle grade books for the year. So I was very interested to see that she wrote the prologue. I don't know much about it yet. I know it's about a woman named Janie. I've just read the first chapter, which is kind of the setup. She has just walked back into town and returned to her home after, I think it said, a year and a half away. She left in like this beautiful dress, and she's returning home in overalls and a ratty shirt. So her neighbors are all aflutter over what happened and where she went and what went on. Apparently, when she left, it was with a younger man, so the neighbors are all abuzz about that as well. And at the end of chapter 1, her best friend Phoebe is sitting on her back porch with her, and Janie settles in to tell Phoebe her story. And so that's like the frame for the rest of the novel, is Janie telling this story of where she's been and what has happened. I'm very excited to finally be reading this. I don't know much else about it, but it sounds great, and I loved the first chapter. So that's Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora and Neale Hurston. Very happy to finally be reading this classic. On audio, I am still listening to The Upper World by Fumi Faduba. I practiced that. I'm really loving this YA novel so far. It is a very unique story, but it's got an element of time travel that I love. That's one of my favorite kinds of novel plots. The storyline here is split between two time periods. In the present day, a teenage boy named Esso lives in South London, goes to school. He's clearly living in a poor section of town. There's a lot of gang violence, which he's trying to avoid, but not successfully. And he's got a couple of good friends, and there's a girl named Nadia that he really likes. So early on in the novel, Esso gets hit in the head. And when that happens, he goes someplace else, which he doesn't fully understand yet, but he calls it the upper world. And I'm trying not to give any spoilers here. He sees different events that could happen in his near future. And his mind is like seeing all these things in rapid fire. This is right at the beginning of the novel. Things that clearly it's his life, it's the people around him, different. And as he goes through the next couple of days, he realizes it's different events, different outcomes that could happen in his near future. And then the narrative jumps ahead 15 years later to a teen girl named Rhea, living in the same area. Rhea's in a foster home, and she plays soccer, and she has a new physics tutor who says just to call him Dr. Esso. Got it? So the novel goes back and forth between 15 years earlier when Esso's a teenager, and this time period when he is a physics tutor tutoring this girl named Rhea. And there are just all kinds of secrets and twists, and I am loving this book so far. It's one of the things I love about time travel. And this one even, there are some little tiny physics lessons in it. But, you know, if you're not into that, it's really not distracting. The story itself is just completely engrossing. I'm really enjoying it so far, and I can't wait to see what happens. So that is The Upper World by Fumi Fadupa. And that's what I'm reading this week. I would love to hear from you about what you're reading this weekend. Let me know in the comments down below.